Welcome to the May 3rd, 2023 Findlay City Council regular session. We will start this evening's meeting with the roll call, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence.
Mr. Ballman?
Here.
Ms. Frischi?
Here.
Mr. Greeno? Mr. Hellman?
Here.
Mr. Niemeyer? Here. Mr. Palmer?
Here.
Mr. Russell?
Here.
Mr. Slough?
Here.
Ms. Warnicki?
Here.
And Mr. Wopser?
Present.
Mr. Greeno informed me this evening he wasn't feeling well and would not be able to attend tonight's meeting. I will entertain a motion to excuse.
So moved.
Mr. Russell, second Mr. Baumann. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. He is excused. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I will entertain a motion to accept the previous meeting's minutes. I'm sorry, Mr. Wobser.
So moved.
Second, Mr. Slough. Any discussion? All those in favor of the council minutes of the previous meeting say aye. Any opposed, nay. They are accepted. Mr. Russell, do we have any add-ons, replacements, or removals from tonight's agenda?
Yes, sir. We have an add-on letter from City Engineer Calb concerning a temporary salt structure. Add-on resolution 014-2023 for no PO, and ordinance 2023-054 for a temporary salt structure, and move that all three be added to the agenda in the appropriate locations.
Second, Mr. Palmer. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor of adding the items to tonight's agenda say aye. Any opposed, nay. They are added. We have no retirement. Oh, I'm sorry, we don't have recognitions, but we do have a retirement resolution this evening. Ms. Mayor.
We were trying to decide if we were going to. Resolution number 013-2023, a resolution commending Carolyn Chase for the excellence of her services to the city of Findlay, Ohio. Whereas Carolyn Chase, who served the city of Findlay, Ohio for 28 years as a dedicated, loyal employee, retired effective April 21st, 2023. Carolyn began her career with the City Income Tax Department as an account clerk 1 on February 27, 1995. She transferred to the City Auditor's Office as the payroll clerk on October 28, 1996, where she transitioned through several titles until reaching Auditor Staff Accountant, a position she held until her retirement. And whereas, during her time with the City Auditor's Office, Carolyn was instrumental with the implementation of direct deposit in 1997, implementation of the Munis software for the payroll system in 2006, implementation of the employee self-service software in 2018, and working on the implementation of the executive time and attendance software starting in 2022 until her retirement. She helped mold the current medical insurance plan structure, including the HSA and FSA programs, and she served as an ex officio member of the Employee Insurance Committee. She drafted a multitude of salary ordinances. Carolyn reviewed numerous union contracts to determine how to properly process them through the payroll system. Over the years, she assisted many employees with issues dealing with workers' comp, retirement preparation, medical insurance benefits, questions regarding paychecks, vacation and sick leave balances, helped several families in need of assistance with life insurance claims, and many, many more payroll items. And whereas Carolyn was nominated several times and then selected as the 2011 winner of the John E. Seaman Employee Excellence Award. And whereas during her years of service with the City of Findlay, Carolyn completed many job-related courses and attended numerous training sessions, too numerous to mention. And whereas Carolyn has served the City of Findlay through 3 auditors, 8 treasurers, 6 mayoral administrations, and no less than 13 service and or service safety directors during her 28 years of service to the City of Findlay, Ohio. Carolyn has performed as an outstanding public servant in a loyal and dedicated manner to the citizens of the City of Findlay, Ohio, through her responsibilities within the City of Findlay Income Tax Department and the City Auditor's Office. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Findlay, State of Ohio, Section 1, that that said Carolyn Chase be and she is hereby commended for her long and loyal services to the city, and that this council extends its best wishes to her upon her retirement from the city of Findlay, Ohio. And Section 2, this resolution shall take effect and be in full force from and after the earliest period provided by the law. Auditor Stashak will now present Carolyn her accommodation.
Yeah, we need a motion to approve the resolution. Mr. Baumann, second Mr. Palmer. Discussion from council. We'll let you do that. Mr. Stashak, Carolyn, would you please come forward? First off, my only comment is what are they going to do when you're gone? Oh, good. Good for you. All right. Well, I'm sure you trained her well. So.
I tried. There's some things that
Mr. President.
brings.
Come on up here, Carolyn.
Mr. President.
Let's turn this way so people can
I'm sorry,
see us at home.
Mr. Wobser? Oh,
Everywhere.
nothing.
A lot of people don't realize that you work for the auditor. You don't work for the mayor or the courts or anybody else. You work for the auditor's office. And I would like everybody in this community to know how special you have been to me and in working there. I would never have guessed I would have gotten to the point where I've got almost 30 years of working out in the world, and in all of the time, it's been such an honor and a privilege to work with somebody who cares so much about the people that she works with, who takes to heart everything that she does. Your thoroughness, your curiosity, your desire to do the right thing and help people. I am constantly and have been constantly amazed when employees would call or come in, not only that you knew every name, every last name, their brother, aunt, cousin, sister, and daughters, but you knew how to help them. And if you didn't, you sure got them help. And that is a special, special skill. And I will never forget that as long as I live, Carolyn. You've just been wonderful. And the city, in its gratitude, has this wonderful, nice watch for you. It's a Bulova watch with the city emblem for those of you who can't see it at home.
Thank you very much.
And Carolyn, I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. It's just been such an honor and a privilege, and I hope you visit us often, if nothing else other than to give me a hard time. So,
I was going to say, that's pretty easy to do.
so if there's anything you'd like to say, please do.
If Mr. Harrington doesn't mind, since
The
he's
mic
president
is
council. Like the resolution says, I've been through 3 auditors. I won't rank them 1, 2, and 3. That would be unfair with the current one standing here. No. Each one of them has an amount of integrity, honesty, and dedication that it takes to be an elected official. They have been very good at their job. I think with all the audits we've gone through since I've been here, and Ginger, correct me if I'm wrong, there's never been a finding for recovery from our auditor's office. And if you know what that means we paid everybody the right amount at the right time, the right person, and we followed the rules doing it. And so that means that we as the compliant office and as the financial advisors are a huge asset to the city. And I was very proud to be part of that asset. And I hope my legacy carries on because I felt God put me in a position where I could help people. I think I did help them. And I have a great fondness for all of our city employees. They're just wonderful people, and they work very hard for the citizens. So the only thing I would say to council and other members of the city, please know what asset you have in the auditor's office. Jim's always right, usually when it comes to numbers, so is Ginger. I don't know if we're right about everything, but we know who we're paying when and why and how we can pay them. So just remember you have that asset at your disposal any moment. And I would have liked to have seen more of the council members in our office asking questions. And I know some of you called Jim on the phone. I wouldn't have seen you there. But when a council member crosses our door, we have a specific responsibility to you to give you the right story, the true story, and the story you may not want to hear. But it's not going to get us in legal trouble then if we know that. So anytime you need numbers, please come and see these guys. I don't think they have enough to do since I'm gone because half their day was spent keeping me in line. So thank you. It was a privilege to be a City of Findlay employee. And I like the city. I like where we're going in some aspects. Other aspects, I'm an old lady and say, no, don't do that. So Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you.
Are there any other comments from council? Hearing none, all those in favor of the resolution, say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Ballman?
Aye.
Ms. Frischi?
Aye.
Mr. Greeno? Oh, Mr. Hellman?
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer? Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Slough?
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki?
Aye.
Mr. Wopser?
Aye.
The resolution is adopted. Okay, we have no written communications, reports of municipal officers and departments. Oh, I'm sorry, judges. Oh, my gosh, why would I forget those? The municipal judges, Judge Hackenberg and Judge Bishop, are here to give us an update on the safe surrender and other court issues.
Well, thank you, Council, for having us speak. Thank you, Mr. Russell, for actually inviting us to speak. As the court just concluded our 6th annual Safe Surrender event last Thursday, it was a very big success, and Mr. Russell expressed an interest in how it went, and I told him how it went, and he thought it would be advisable to come to Council and let Council know how that went. So to do that, I'm going to have our Clerk of Courts, Heather Eigel, give you some information to see just how successful a day it was, and so I will defer to Clerk Eigel.
Thank you. Thanks for the invitation tonight. April 27th, we conducted our 6th annual Safe Surrender event, and if you're unaware of what that is, if you have an active bench warrant in our court, you can come in on the 27th, no questions asked, we'll take care of the warrant, and that way there's no fear of incarceration for our defendants. This was another highly successful event for the court this year. Over the last 6 years, we've addressed 456 individuals and resolved 549 warrants. This year, we had 73 people come in and resolved 94 warrants in the one day between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. So my staff was very busy that day. This event saved the city of Findlay and Hancock County approximately $55,000 in jail housing costs, which was at least 515 days in jail. So that's a big savings to the city and the county, as well as to our defendants. We had 3 individuals of the 73 that traveled from Michigan, Arizona, and Dutch Harbor, Alaska to take care of their warrants. So this was a big deal for these guys.
I guess.
We had 21 pre-conviction warrants heard by the court, which the Hancock County Public Defender's Office and the City Law Director's Office assisted the court with resolving these cases. We had 73 post-conviction warrants, and all individuals with counseling or community service requirements all re-engaged in their counseling programs and community service. We also had status conference warrants, which are fines and cost reviews, and all of those people entered into new payment plans and were set up with new court dates. The court recalled 45 warrants from the Findlay Police Department, 48 warrants from the Hancock County Sheriff's Office, and 1 warrant from the Ohio State Highway Patrol. We also sent out 999 text messages to anyone that had an active warrant that was issued in the last year. So that was April of 22 to April of 23. So 999 people got text messages. Of those, 62 people appeared from that group. Not a great number, but it still got there. We also ran a Facebook ad for 12 days and reached 13,803 social media users in Northwest Ohio, and the post was shared 126 times. And we received 3 very positive comments from individuals that were happy about the program or had taken part of it in the previous years. So that really meant a lot to see that the community appreciated that. We would also like to thank the Hancock County Public Defender's Office, the City Law Director's Office, the Sheriff's Department, the Police Department, the State Patrol, as well as the judges were on WFIN and WKXA in the morning on Monday. And Channel 13 sent a reporter down and did an interview with Judge Hackenberg, as well as our community agencies, Welcome to a New Life, the Family Resource Center, Crime Stoppers, and Focus. So again, this event, some people think it's a trap or that it's fake, but we have a lot of people that are very happy. As you can see, like I said, if you travel from Arizona and Alaska to get your warrant taken care of, it's a really big deal for these people. So thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any questions for the judges or the clerk? Mr. Russell?
So a couple for whomever. Number one is this program been replicated by any other muni courts in this state that you are aware of?
We're aware of this being done in other jurisdictions throughout the state, not necessarily anything really locally. We did have Judge Rulin from the Upper Sandusky Municipal Court attend with one of his staff members, and he is looking about instituting this program and had a very positive takeaway, and is going to probably send a team up here in the next few weeks to meet with our team to see how to implement it and roll it out. So, but yeah, this is not necessarily unique to just Ohio, but there's not a lot of courts in this jurisdiction that go down this path and do a safe surrender type program like we did.
Okay. And you mentioned, so 94 warrants were resolved. Out of curiosity, and I'm not trying to play stump the judge or anything here, how many bench warrants are there total outstanding?
I was told we don't like no answers or I don't know answers. So we've got 2,848 warrants as of today.
Okay.
And I've got about a stack about this big on my desk that I've just issued today.
So for the folks who don't avail themselves of this opportunity, is there a reason, or is it just they don't know, or
I think there's a multitude of reasons. One, they don't want to deal with the issue. Some people put it off and think that it's going to go away, but unfortunately it typically catches up with them and probably causes more of an impact in their life than if they had just dealt with it to begin with. Some individuals really just don't know that they have a bench warrant because they've moved and they've changed their phone number or whatnot and have just forgotten about the issue. So I think there's a number of different issues.
Okay.
Yeah, I think when COVID hit and the jail had to go into COVID protocols, and then the Justice Center had staffing issues that they couldn't keep fully opened, our warrants were low priority. And one thing that has really helped is when council went ahead and authorized the use of funds for outside housing, we were able to start holding people accountable again. The word spread with those individuals. Then the jail got back open again, and so people were going back to jail for warrants that they always had been going to jail for, but then weren't for a period of time. And so I think a lot of those factors came into play, and while we had some much I would say pre-COVID turnout numbers in 23 than we did in 20, 21, and 22.
And then I take it this is gonna occur again next year.
Yeah.
Are you able to do the reveal on when are we looking once again at an April date?
So
for
we
next
always
year?
used to do this in August, September,
Yes.
or late summer, early fall. Second, Welcome to New Life asked if we would move it in 22 to April. April being Second Chance Month, and so we were happy to play along with and go along with that. They're very supportive of our programs, and we're supportive of them, and so we moved it to April. So I think that was part of an issue last year too when our numbers were down. So now we're firmly entrenched in April at this point in time. And so yes, it's an annual thing. And then the other positive program we run, as council may be aware, is of a DOS day where we try to get people licensed again to drive validly in the state of Ohio. We moved that from our sort of a spring time frame to the fall so we just sort of flop those dates. So, but again, they're positive programs. So,
Thank you. Ms. Frischi?
I just want to say to all of you guys, it's a great program. I think Judge Bishop is right. A lot of people don't know. I've always shared when we had it posted, and people have always said they have appreciated the kindness extended to them and treating them like a human. To get through that. I actually had somebody contact me from my social media from Chicago. He didn't know. And then he went to get his license renewed, and that wasn't happening. And Dave Beach was able to work with him. You guys were able to work with him because he wasn't able to travel. And you guys really treat them with respect, and I think that's great. So thank you for doing this program.
Well, again, we appreciate those positive comments, and we certainly, as much as a court being an institution of accountability, we certainly try to do as much as we can to work with people to help them out, and because everyone, especially now in this day and age, needs help. So, and again, the support of council and administration certainly allows us to do these kind of programs and events. So, again, we're happy to keep you guys in the loop. Thank you again for asking us to present, and we'll be happy to present anytime you'd like on our other successful programs.
Mr. Hellman.
I hate to show my ignorance, but for my own edification, I try not to deal with you folks. But does this deal with jail time or just fines or a little bit of both? What's involved?
It could deal with any type of warrant that potentially is issued. So if an individual didn't report to jail, a warrant's issued for their days, so they could come in on the safe surrender day, reschedule their jail days, so that warrant's recalled, and that way they can plan their jail days around work, kids, whatever other obligations they have. It could be that they didn't show up for a status conference hearing, so they can come in, deal with it at that point, and have the warrant recalled. If they failed to engage in treatment, they can come in, re-engage in that treatment, get the warrant recalled. So a multitude of different issues.
Thank you. One follow-up thing, if I might. They aren't forgiven the
No.
jail time or?
No,
Okay.
no sentences are modified.
All right.
They just get a reset, for lack of a better word, whatever their original
Rescheduled,
sentence was.
okay.
Or if they've not been sentenced yet, if they failed to appear for an arraignment with the public defender's office there as well as the prosecutor's office, or failed to appear for some pre-sentencing hearing, we were able to get a number of those resolved that day as well with their assistance.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the update. Keep up the good work.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Have a good evening.
Moving on to reports of municipal officers and municipal departments.
Board of Zoning Appeals minutes for March 16th, 2023.
Questions or comments? Minutes to be filed?
Treasurer's Reconciliation Report for March 31st, 2023.
Questions or comments? Report to be filed?
Letter from City Engineer Calb regarding parking enforcement vehicle replacement.
Questions or comments? Mr. Slough?
I'm just curious, how many miles were on the car?
He's actually using a secondary vehicle because his primary vehicle is inoperable. So he's using one of the escapes. I think it was actually from the courts that he's using right now. So I can't tell you how many miles, but his primary vehicle is not being used. So he is needing a new one.
Other
Thank you,
questions or
sir.
comments? Oh, Mayor?
If I can just add one thing, I know we get questions. First of all, this is a different vehicle than our cruisers, but I know we get questions a lot about the number of cruisers we have, and we follow the kind of best practice. Our cars are typically either 5 years or 100,000 miles because they're running constantly. Plus, then we have a certain number that have to be in reserve because they may be getting maintenance, number of different things. So, if you look at your capital book, we have in there next to it when a vehicle's being replaced, what year of vehicle it's replacing, and we have some older vehicles in our fleet. So if you're looking for something, you can look back in there.
Other questions or comments? Letter to be filed.
A letter from City Engineer Calb regarding Harrison Street water line replacement number 357-20200.
Mr. Russell?
Jeremy, obviously this has been projects part of our capital plan. Is the and there's some immediate benefit for the citizens or for the folks in this area when this thing gets completed. Is Rocky Edge Excavating ready to go if this gets passed tonight?
Yeah, they are ready to start when we can give them funds. I told them that we were going to send it through council. We had a meeting to sit down with them, make sure we go through the project, and they understand because this is pretty much rock out there that they're going to have to be hammering the whole time. So before we really sign anything and progress forward, we wanted to sit down with them, make sure they understand what they're getting into. So after all that, yeah, they said as soon as we can get money, they will get started on it.
And what's the length? What's the length of the project once they start?
It's probably, I would say it's probably going to be from beginning to end 2 to 3 week project. It's not too far of a run, but this is where Logan Avenue, we have a dead end line, and we're going to create a loop system through there, so it'll create better water quality and pressure for that area.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Frishy?
Just curious, I don't even know the answer. Harrison, do they have sewer there?
So it would be Logan Avenue and Bile. They do. This is just looping it from. We call it Harrison because it runs parallel with Harrison, but it's actually creating a loop in the water line from Logan to Bile. So we're just running straight down to Bile.
But
they
nothing
do
with sewer.
This is just water line. They already have sewer in that area.
They do, okay.
Other questions or comments? Letter to be filed.
Letter from City Engineer Calb regarding County Road 212, County Road 236, road widening, number 32864600.
Questions or comments? Letter to be filed.
Letter from City Engineer Calb regarding insurance reimbursement for Trent Avenue and Blanchard Street.
Questions or comments? Letter to be filed. Oh, Ms. Frishy?
I was okay with that. I meant to ask a question on the previous one, if that's.
Sure.
Go back.
Yeah, go ahead.
So with the annex, what are we exactly annexing? Is it an intersection? Is it lots? Like, what is the annexation and who owns it?
For this annexation, we are just doing the roadway. So it'd be outside the city limits. Technically the property owners own to the middle of the roadway. So there's part of this that was owned by the commissioners, part of it that was owned by private entities. So what this will be doing will be within the right-of-way. So if you imagine where the right-of-way is for us, say 80 feet each side from the center, it will be just annexing the roadway so that way we can do the work for 212 and 236. So this will go from roughly Hamlet Drive all the way down to State Route 12, where it'll tie back into our city corp limits. Right now, all the properties, if you want to say the southwest corner of 212 and 236 is already within the city corp limit. So this is just going to extend it another 120 feet roughly to the north side of the right-of-way, so that way we can do this work.
So contiguous it will be.
It is currently right now. This is just extending putting the roadway within the city corp limits.
And last question is, why wouldn't the county engineer handle this project?
So this was started back in 15 or 16. It started because of we were getting 629 money for development that was within the city of Findlay. So as part of that, where you can use the money, you have to kind of give a project for that, and this was one of the projects with it. So the city has undertaken it as part of that. And in order for us to work on the project, we have to have it within our city corp. We can't work on a roadway outside our city corporation limit. So the city will be expanding on this because of the 629 money and other grant funds that we can use for this.
So this was just agreed to back in 2016, and we're just dotting the i's, basically, right?
Yeah, this is long, ongoing process that we're finally to the final stage where we can get this thing built.
Other questions or comments? Mr. Baumann.
Correct me if I'm wrong. This is just kind of an addition to our the idea that we would be creating safe passage for semi and commercial traffic that are trying to access the factories and warehouses on 212 or 99.
Yep. So correct. So this will, right now that's a 2-lane roadway. This will be turned into a 4-lane roadway. 80% of our traffic, which are heavy use traffic, is making that 90-degree turn. So it would be a super elevation turn within that area. But yeah, this will give more or less a truck route or business route for those. So that way they don't have to try to navigate through downtown area.
Any other questions or comments? Letter to be filed again.
City,
Go ahead.
City Planning Commission agenda for May 11th, 2023.
Questions or comments? Agenda to be filed.
Letter from Hancock Regional Planning Commission Director Cordonier regarding amendment to the Findlay zoning code.
Questions or comments? Letter to be filed.
Needs referred.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Needs to be referred to.
Oh, I'm sorry. This will be referred to the City Planning Commission and also Planning and Zoning Committee.
Letter from Service Safety Director Martin regarding sale of fire department pickup truck via Gov Deals.
Questions or comments? Letter to be filed.
Letter from City Engineer Kalb regarding advertisement and bid of Main Street and West Main Cross Street intersection upgrades.
Questions or comments? Letter to be filed.
Letter from City Engineer Kalb regarding temporary salt structure number 319-32000.
This was an add-on this evening. Questions or comments? Ms. Frishy.
I'd like to have this read into the minutes, please.
I need a second. That's a motion. Is that in the form of a motion? Second, Mr. Wobser. All those in favor of having the letter read in to tonight's meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. It will be read.
As everyone is aware, we experienced a mild winter with very little snowfall, which resulted in less salt usage. Even though this can be a good thing, finding a storage location for all the salt that we have purchased for the season can be problematic. Currently, we still have 1,050 tons of salt that need to be delivered prior to July 1st, or the city will be charged $23,100 per month for storage of the salt until we can accept the final allotment. At this time, all of the salt barns are at max capacity and there is no additional storage available in any of ODOT or the county's salt barns, as they are experiencing the same problem. To ensure that we do not pay $23,100 per month in storage fees, a temporary salt barn will be constructed on the street department property to store the 1,050 tons. The temporary structure will be constructed of concrete blocks for the walls and a vinyl Quonset. Oh, thank you. For the roof covering. Due to the lead time on the blocks and vinyl Quonset, the requested funds will need to be approved at the May 3rd council meeting so that the structure can be purchased, delivered, and constructed prior to July 1st delivery date. By copy of this letter, the law director is requested to prepare the necessary legislation to authorize the mayor, service safety director, and/or city engineer to enter into contracts and to appropriate and transfer funds as follows. From CIT funds capital improvements restricted account $90,000 to temporary salt structure project number 319-32000, $90,000.
Questions or comments? Letter to, Mr. Russell.
So, Jeremy, can you kind of run me through the timeline on this project? I know it's an add-on and a request to have it reading suspended to get it done tonight. Kind of from run me through how we got here, and then give me a breakdown of how the construction of the lead time for the construction and why it needs to happen tonight.
Yeah, so where we've gone right now, so we every May 1st we have to sign in a contract of how much salt we want each year. Normally in a normal winter we use about 4,500 ton. This year, or this past winter, we used 950 ton. So because of how much we normally use, we want to have between 4,500 to 5,000 tons of salt readily available, because if we run out, then we're going to be paying triple the price to get to that. So with our contract, and because we are at max capacity and everyone is too, we still have, as described, 1,000 ton that still needs to come to our site. July 1st, they will be bringing it to our site, and we have to house it. So that way we are not pretty much washing our money down the drain, more or less, with that. So with that, we've been, in the meantime, this kind of temporary structure that we were talking about was kind of our last resort thing. It was kind of plan E, if you want to say, or D. We called counties, we called township, we called ODOT, try to find something. And then our next thing is, okay, they don't have any capacity now. We need to figure out where we're going to put the structure, how we're going to build the structure, how big it needs to be, and all that kind of stuff. So the temporary structure that we're talking about, it's pretty much, if you guys have seen, they're kind of the concrete roadway blocks that you see out there. They're 6 feet long roughly, and they kind of have the knobs on top. It's a big Lego set, more or less. Those are going to be 6 feet tall, and then we're going to be putting a vinyl Quonset on top of that for the roof structure. We're going to be purchasing them through 2 different vendors for that, and then our street department is going to be pouring a concrete floor with that. So that way, when we are using our front end loaders to scoop that salt into our trucks, we're not scooping up stone, dirt, or anything like that. So we need to have a strong base under that because it is 1,000 pounds of dead load that's going to be on that. So to ensure, though, with that our blocks are not moving, we're going to be building a concrete curb on the outside, just a normal curb, just so that those blocks are not going to push with it. So within this 90,000 is the blocks, the Quonset, and the concrete for our street department to kind of get this thing together. One of the big things with this is we called numerous companies, and one of them would say, yeah, I can get your Quonset in time, but I can't get concrete blocks. And then you call another one, and they couldn't get either in time and all that. We finally found one. We did not get the quote back until Thursday afternoon. Council pack was already done, so that's why it is an add-on. We did not want to go down this route, but the vendors that we use, we found the blocks and we found the Quonset. It can be delivered early June time zone, and then that will give us enough time to get the concrete in, get the Quonset up, and we'll be ready before the July 1st delivery date on that.
Other questions or comments? Mr. Hellman.
Thanks for the explanation. Just a quick question. Is there a use for this pad and block and Quonset hut after the salt is removed from there?
Yeah, so if we don't, if once the salt is out of there and we can use this as a topsoil bay to store topsoil equipment. With that, having a concrete base, it really opens up our, kind of uses for that. If ever, I'm not saying we're going to, but if we ever build a permanent salt structure, a bigger one, I know that was talked a couple years ago, but if we ever did this, now this could be a movable structure to use as an outpost in a location, so that way our trucks aren't traveling all the way back to the center of town. We'll be keeping it, even if it's not a salt structure, it will be used for something. It's not going to be sitting empty.
Thank you.
Ms. Frischie.
So a couple questions. Those plastic roofs, how long's their life?
They have a 20-year warranty on those, the one we're getting. I mean, they're between, it depends on the company and the make, but they're between 15 to 20 year on that. But they're wind load, and they're kind of designed for the winds we see. And when we set this in the location, we got to watch of where our prevailing winds are and all that, so we don't, make it a big balloon type structure either.
And then lastly, it's 90,000, so it's over the 50,000. We don't need to do anything since we're not going out for bid.
So the Quonset will be bought from one vendor, which is roughly 44,000. The blocks is 22,000 from another vendor, and then we had 25,000 left in concrete work that we'll be performing ourselves.
Are we constructing it as well then?
We'll be putting the concrete in, probably the blocks, but the Quonset, we would have to ensure we get the warranty and all that, so we would have to have someone build that.
And then my last question was just for the mayor. Obviously, this problem is across the state. Have we talked, is there anything that we can do to not allow them to charge $23,000 a month rent for salt? It's kind of price gouging, but I don't remember who we get our salt from. It's not from the state, right? It's from a private entity. It's from a salt distributor.
Mayor.
Yeah. Yeah, so it is from from a private company, but it's through a state bid contract on that. So they have guidelines on there that pretty much you say you're going to buy 2,500 ton, you're going to take 2,500 ton. So it's not just us, or it's ODOT and the counties all have the same kind of requirement with that as well.
So our contract said $23,000 a month rent. We didn't take it.
Yeah, so last year it was we said we were going to buy 2,500 ton. This year we actually only signed on for 1,500 ton. But within the contract it says if you don't take your full allotment, it's $22 per ton per month until you take your allotment.
Mayor.
Yeah, I was just going to add. So this is, again, happening to everybody pretty much. And yes, that does seem a bit ridiculous, but those entities also have to be able to continue to produce and store their supplies that they can then turn around and sell it later in the year, right? Because next year we could have a horrible winter and everybody's in demand again. So it's a little tricky situation, but that's something I can certainly follow up with. I did just want to point out one thing. We just became aware of this 2 weeks ago. So this is obviously not how we like to do business, right? We don't want to, one, have an add-on, and then two, have this situation. We had been working, as Jeremy said, reaching out to everybody we could. We're looking at all sorts of weird scenarios to try to address this problem. And ultimately, this is really the best solution and most cost-effective, and will provide additional benefit long-term, given that it is a structure that can be relocated if appropriate.
Ms. Frishy?
Would it be usable for ARPA dollars instead of using the CIT?
Our ARPA dollars have all been put in as revenue replacement anyway, so there's not a point in doing a specific line item. And at this point in time, pretty much all of our dollars have been already allocated to projects, except for, I think, the demolition funds, which, we have a little bit. But I don't think it's worth going through that process when we have money available in capital.
Jeremy?
Yeah, so I've chosen to take this, or I chose to take this out of the capital funds because of where we're sitting at currently, what projects I have out of the capital funds right now, what revenues we're seeing in, working with the auditor's office and all that kind of stuff. I'm comfortable with this coming out of capital funds instead of general fund or something like that.
Mr. Baumann?
So it would seem to me that by very definition, this is rock and hard place, right? So the alternative is to leave it outside, and every time it rains, we lose a percentage of the salt that we paid for anyways. We can pay for storage, that's no good either, or we can build this structure. It would seem to me that building this structure would make more sense.
Yeah, I mean, leaving outside, that is an option, but I wouldn't want to entertain that because then you're going to get into an environmental thing. It is an option, but, in our eyes, we wouldn't want to look at that. So pretty much, I would say our two options is store it up where the supplier, or we build the structure.
Because in what 4 or 5 months we would have exhausted the price tag for this anyways in storage.
More or less, yes.
Yeah, 5 months times 23 is over $100,000. Ms. Frishy?
What are we doing for contract for this year coming up? What do we have pricing? Obviously we're going to get less salt, I am assuming.
Yeah, so that price is established, and we have signed on May 1st. We had to make that purchase, and we only did 1,500 tons this year to account for the 1,000 that we have excess of.
Other questions or comments? Letter to be filed. Committee reports.
The Strategic Planning Committee met on April 18th, 2023 to continue the strategic planning process. We recommend to continue building the strategic plan document and process.
Mr. Wobser.
Make a motion to approve the committee report.
Second, Ms. Warnicki. And discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the Strategic Planning Committee report, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. It is accepted. Legislation, we'll start with resolutions.
Second reading for Resolution 12, 2023. A resolution stating what services the City of Findlay, Ohio will provide to the territory proposed to be annexed to the City of Findlay, Ohio, situated in Marion and Cass Townships, County of Hancock, State of Ohio, being a part of the south half of Section 33 and part of the southwest quarter of Section 34, Township 2 North, Range 11 East, Cass Township, also being part of the northwest quarter, part of the northeast quarter, and part of the southeast quarter of Section 4, Marion Township, Township 1 North, Range 11 East, also being part of the northwest quarter and part of the southwest quarter of Section 3, Marion Township, Township 1 North, Range 11 East, County of Hancock, State of Ohio, a tract of land consisting of 15.043 acres of land, more or less.
Ordinances.
We do have one more resolution.
I'm sorry, there was an add-on on
Yep.
the resolution.
First reading for Resolution 14, 2023. A resolution approving the expenditures made by the Auditor's Office on the attached list of vouchers which either exceed the purchase order or were incurred without a purchase order, exceeding the statutory limit of $3,000, all in accordance with Ohio Revised Code 5705.41D.
1 or 3 readings.
1.
Mr. Russell.
Move for adoption of resolution 014-2023.
Second, Mr. Baumann. Discussion. Ms. Frishy.
Jeremy, at Hancock Regional Planning for Engineering for 25,000. Little detail on what that was for specifically, please.
Go ahead.
So part of CDBG grant opportunities that we get with that, they have an administrative fee that goes with that. We just, on this one, did not get a PO in time before they did their first invoice. We had the money for that. We had it set aside for it. We just did not get the PO. So this is a normal thing that we do. We just failed to get that purchase order in time.
Other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of the resolution say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Ms. Frishy?
Aye.
Mr. Hellman?
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer? Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Slough?
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki?
Aye.
Mr. Wobser?
Aye.
Mr. Baumann?
Aye.
The resolution is adopted. Ordinances.
Third reading for ordinance 2023-36, an ordinance amending one section of codified ordinance number 2022-81 as amended, known as the salary ordinance of the city of Findlay, Ohio, and repealing all other parts of ordinances in conflict herewith and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Slough.
I had moved for adoption of ordinance 2023-036.
Second, Mr. Palmer. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor of the ordinance say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Hellman?
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Slough?
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki?
Aye.
Mr. Wobser?
Aye.
Mr. Baumann?
Aye.
And Ms. Frishy?
Aye.
Ordinance is adopted.
Third reading for ordinance 2023-40, an ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of Findlay, Ohio to enter into a contract extension with ACP Green and Associates LLC, doing business as Planning Next, to provide consulting services and implementing a strategic plan for the city of Findlay, appropriating funds thereto, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Hellman.
I move for approval of ordinance 2023-040.
Second, Mr. Wobser. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor of the ordinance say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Niemeyer,
Nay.
Mr. Palmer,
Aye.
Mr. Russell,
Aye.
Mr. Slough,
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki,
Aye.
Mr. Wobser,
Aye.
Mr. Baumann,
Aye.
Ms. Frishy,
Nay.
Mr. Hellman.
Aye.
2
Your-
nays.
Yeah, the ordinance is adopted.
Second reading for ordinance 2023-41, an ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of Findlay, Ohio to enter into a memorandum of agreement with the Maumee Watershed Conservancy District and the Ohio Department of Natural Resources for continued flood mitigation improvements in and near the city of Findlay and declaring an emergency. Second reading for ordinance 2023-42, an ordinance appropriating and transferring funds and declaring an emergency. Second reading for ordinance 2023-43, an ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of Findlay, Ohio to accept permanent ownership of properties in order for the Board of Commissioners of Hancock County, Ohio to transfer the parcels listed on the attached exhibit to the city of Findlay, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Baumann.
Mayor, was there a timeline on the transfer of these properties?
No, there's no specific rush, and I know I'm still working on getting a couple of follow-up items from the commissioners related to the auditor had some concerns, just wanted documentation on the environmental, so this does not need passed tonight.
Okay.
First reading for ordinance 2023-46, an ordinance amending Chapter 1100 et sec of the codified ordinances of the city of Findlay, Ohio, known as the zoning code, by rezoning the following described property referred to as 315 North Blanchard Street rezone, which previously was zoned R3 small lot residential to C1 local commercial. First reading for ordinance 2023-47, an ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of Findlay, Ohio to enroll the city of Findlay in the Bureau of Workers' Compensation Group Retrospective Rating Plan and declaring an emergency. First reading for ordinance 2023-48, an ordinance authorizing the mayor, service safety director, and/or city engineer of the city of Findlay, Ohio, to enter into a contract or contracts for the purchase of a replacement vehicle for the city of Findlay Parking Enforcement Department, appropriating and transferring funds thereto, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Baumann.
I make a motion that council statutory rules be suspended and ordinance number 2023-049 be given its second and third reading.
4-8.
4-8, excuse me, sorry.
Second, Mr. Slough. All those in favor of the suspension of rules on this ordinance, say aye after your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Palmer,
Nay.
Mr. Russell,
Nay.
Mr. Slough,
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki,
Nay.
Mr. Wobser,
Nay.
Mr. Ballman,
Aye.
Ms. Frishy,
Nay.
Mr. Hellman,
Nay.
Mr. Niemeyer.
The motion to suspend is not adopted.
First reading for ordinance 2023-49, an ordinance authorizing the mayor, service safety director, and/or city engineer of the city of Findlay, Ohio, to enter into a contractor contract for the Harrison Street water line replacement, project number 357-20200, appropriating and transferring funds and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Russell.
The obvious benefit of looping water lines, it gives an immediate big benefit. It's a 3-week project that has been in our capital plan, and so a 2-week delay, which is almost the entire, almost giving it a 50% length of the project, seems unnecessary, and therefore I'd make a motion that council statutory rules be suspended and ordinance 2023-049 be given its second and third reading.
Second, Mr. Niemeyer. All those in favor of the suspension of the rules, say aye after your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Russell,
Aye.
Mr. Slough,
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki,
Aye.
Mr. Wobser,
Nay.
Mr. Ballman,
Aye.
Ms. Frishy,
Nay.
Mr. Hellman,
Nay.
Mr. Niemeyer,
Aye.
Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
3 nays, 6 in favor.
Mr. Rasmussen, 7-3.
6-3.
Or I'm saying 6-3 is.
Doesn't pass.
The rules of council will not be suspended. Next.
First reading for ordinance 2023-50, an ordinance authorizing the mayor, service safety director, and/or city engineer of the city of Findlay, Ohio, to enter into a contractor contracts with Honebrick Excavating Incorporated for the County Road 212, County Road 236 road widening, project number 32864600, appropriating and transferring funds thereto and declaring an emergency. First reading for ordinance 2023-51, an ordinance authorizing the mayor, service safety director, and/or city engineer of the city of Findlay, Ohio, to enter into a contract for the purchase of a replacement control cabinet, appropriating funds thereto, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Palmer.
Since this is a reimbursement and not an allocation of new funds, I move that council's rules, statutory rules, be suspended and this ordinance be given its second and third reading.
Second, Mr. Baumann. All those in favor of the suspension of the rules, say aye after your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Slough,
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki,
Aye.
Mr. Wobser,
Aye.
Mr. Ballman,
Aye.
Ms. Frishy,
Aye.
Mr. Hellman,
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer, Mr. Palmer,
Aye.
Mr. Russell.
Aye.
Rules of council have been suspended, and the clerk will give this ordinance its second and third reading.
Ordinance 2023-51, ordinance 2023-51.
Mr. Wobser.
Move for approval.
Second, Mr. Hellman. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the ordinance say aye after your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Ms. Warnicki,
Aye.
Mr. Wobser,
Aye.
Mr. Ballman,
Aye.
Ms. Frishy,
Aye.
Mr. Hellman,
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer, Mr. Palmer,
Aye.
Mr. Russell,
Aye.
and Mr. Slough.
Aye.
The ordinance is adopted.
First reading for ordinance 2023-52, an ordinance appropriating funds and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Russell.
Move that council's rules be suspended and this ordinance be given its second and third reading.
Second, Mr. Palmer. All those in favor of suspension of the rules say aye after your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Wobser,
Aye.
Mr. Ballman,
Aye.
Ms. Frishy,
Aye.
Mr. Hellman,
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer, Mr. Palmer,
Aye.
Mr. Russell,
Aye.
Mr. Slough,
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki.
Aye.
The rules of council have been suspended, and the clerk will give the ordinance its second and third reading.
Ordinance 2023-52, ordinance 2023-52.
Mr. Wobser.
Move for approval.
Second, Mr. Palmer. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the ordinance say aye after your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Ballman,
Aye.
Ms. Frishy, Oh, sorry.
Aye.
Mr. Hellman.
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer. Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
Mr. Russell.
Aye.
Mr. Slough.
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki.
Aye.
And Mr. Wobser.
Aye.
The ordinance is adopted.
First reading for ordinance 2023-53, an ordinance authorizing the mayor, service safety director, and city engineer of the city of Findlay, Ohio, to advertise for bids and enter into contracts for the construction of intersection upgrades within the city of Findlay and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Russell.
This is a request or ordinance to advertise for bids. This has been a project that's been in the works for a couple of years. I know we've had a lot of issues getting supplies, or getting the supplies for this, but I think this is something to get moving today because we're just advertising for bids. So therefore, I make a motion that council statutory rules be suspended and ordinance 2023-053 be given its second and third reading.
Second, Mr. Slough. All those in favor of suspension of the rules say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Ms. Frishy.
Nay.
Mr. Hellman.
Nay.
Mr. Niemeyer.
Yes.
Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
Mr. Russell.
Aye.
Mr. Slough.
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki.
Aye.
Mr. Wobser.
Aye.
And Mr. Ballman.
Aye.
The rules of council have been suspended, and the clerk will give this ordinance its second and third reading.
Ordinance 2023-53, ordinance 2023-53.
Mr. Russell.
Move for adoption of ordinance 2023-053.
Second, Mr. Palmer. Discussion. Mr. Hellman.
If I may, I've got a question, I guess, for Councilman Russell when he said that this is merely for the advertising of bids. However, this reads for the advertising of bids and entering into contracts and construction. So it's a lot more than just advertising for bids. Am I missing something here? Mr. Cobb,
Jeremy.
if you would.
I do not have enough funds to cover construction. All of the funds we have right now is for advertising. So that's just normal language that we put in to advertise for bid and enter into construction. So as soon as I get bids back, you'll be seeing a appropriation of funds with our contractor who would be selected. So this is more or less on my end. It would be just advertising to get it out to bid.
Okay, so we will see it again, and then this is kind of written loosely.
If you want, you said those terms, but but yeah, it's advertisement. I do not have the funds for construction on this. We have bought the material and we set enough money aside for advertising for these. So I will be coming back for funds for the construction of it.
All right, thank you, appreciate that.
Other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of the ordinance say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Hellman. This is for adoption, Mr. Hellman.
This is
Aye.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Niemeyer.
Aye.
Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
Mr. Russell.
Aye.
Mr. Slough.
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki.
Aye.
Mr. Wobser.
Aye.
Mr. Ballman.
Aye.
Ms. Frishy.
Aye.
I think that's it.
The ordinance is adopted.
Phew. First reading for ordinance 2023-54. An ordinance authorizing the mayor, service safety director, and/or city engineer of the city of Findlay, Ohio, to enter into a contract or contracts for the construction of a temporary salt barn storage structure, appropriating and transferring funds thereto, and declaring an emergency.
Ms. Frishy.
I think because there was good communication, Jeremy, this evening regarding this request for the temporary salt structure, and we're kind of in a pickle, I think we should make that motion to suspend and give second and third reading for ordinance 2023-054.
Second, Mr. Niemeyer. All those in favor of the suspension of rules say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Niemeyer.
Aye.
Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
Mr. Russell.
Aye.
Mr. Slough.
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki.
Aye.
Mr. Wobser.
Aye.
Mr. Ballman.
Aye.
Ms. Frishy.
Aye.
Mr. Hellman.
Aye.
The rules of council have been suspended, and the clerk will give the ordinance its second and third reading.
Ordinance 2023-54. Ordinance 2023-54.
Mr. Palmer.
Move for adoption of ordinance number 2023-054.
Second, Ms. Frishy. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the ordinance say aye if your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
Mr. Russell.
Aye.
Mr. Slough.
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki.
Aye.
Mr. Wobser.
Aye.
Mr. Ballman.
Aye.
Ms. Frishy.
Aye.
Mr. Hellman.
Aye.
And Mr. Niemeyer.
The ordinance is adopted. Old business. New business? No business? No. Mr. Russell?
Actually, that is correct. This is an announcement of no business. Planning and zoning will not be meeting on Thursday, November 4th. We have nothing on the agenda. I think City Planning Commission might have a long meeting. Denny, Jim, Holly, please do not show up at noon for a planning and zoning meeting. That will not happen. Brian, you may attend that meeting.
No.
Ms. Mayor?
Just point of clarification, I believe you mean May, not November.
I worked the polls last night. I'm mighty tired, or yesterday. I'm mighty tired.
I do, however.
Ms. Mayor?
Just a couple of quick items. First of all, I want to give a huge shout out to water distribution, public works. Who else was on? Thank you. My brain went blank. And our sewer department, who all worked on Center Street. It was a super coordinated effort to do 20 different line replacements within a 4-day period and get the road repaved and reopened. They were working like a machine through there. That's a huge thoroughfare, and I'm very thankful for their coordination, and to Jeremy and Rob for sitting down and really working through the teams to coordinate all of that. It was a beautiful construction dance. So good work, team. Appreciate that. Additionally, I'd like to invite council to in council chambers on Friday at 12:45. Lieutenant Governor Husted will be here to present the proclamation and recognition for the top micropolitan. So he's going to be stopping by just briefly. If you're available here, 12:45, please stop by. And then I just wanted to mention, as I noted earlier, I am continuing to work with the Maumee Watershed Conservancy District and different entities to gather the information that has been requested for the benching properties and the basin properties. And then one final shout out regarding the Bureau of Workers' Comp. We'll give you more information on this. We're going to do a little bit of a press release, but through the careful management of our workers' compensation, not only have we seen a huge decrease in lost days and workers' comp claims and injuries at work, we also have seen over $1 million the last 5 years return to the city of Findlay in refunds because of that performance. Over the last 5 years, we received $2.5 million in refunds. Now, about $1 million of that was part of the statewide Bureau of Workers' Comp, but still, we've received over $1 million that because of the careful management and a culture of safety with the team, that's something that we've really been pushing, and it's great to see them, one, keeping each other safe and working to keep themselves safe, but we're also seeing the financial benefit from that. So just wanted to give them a shout out. And Don Essex, our HR director, who really has been leading the charge in that. We also have been doing some safety trainings for employees related to run, hide, fight, as well as where we will be doing fire drills and tornadoes and drills, and working for folks to be able to be trained on AEDs and CPR. So making sure that, it's great that if there's one person on the team that can help save somebody, but if that person goes down, we want to be able to help them too. So making sure that there's that culture of safety, and really proud of the work that's being done. So I just wanted to give a shout out there. That is all. Thank you.
Additional new business? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Baumann, second Mr. Palmer. All those in favor of adjournment say aye. Any opposed, nay. We are adjourned.